Since the day he was born, July 21st, 1951, in Chicago, Illinois, comedy was one of the ways Robin McLaurin Williams could connect with his parents. Robin and his mother would enjoy a very childish sense of humor. Robin would recall, "My mother was funny with me, and I started to be charming and funny with her. And I learned that by being entertaining, you could make a connection with a person." While Robin and his father shared a love of late-night comedians. Robin recalled, "I saw my father watching the television show with Jonathan Winters. My father was a sweet man, but not an easy laugh. My dad lost it, and I went, 'Who is this guy who made the great white father laugh?'" Robin would record these comedians by using a cassette player when they appeared on the television. He would then listen to these recordings over and over, dissecting not only the joke, but in the ways in which they were delivered. Robin felt he never fitted in at school, as he was always the new boy, since they moved around due to his father's work. One particularly difficult move for Robin was when they relocated to a secluded mansion in Bloomfield Hills. It was so lonely. There were no friends around. I was an only child, raised basically by the maid for a long time. Robin became very adept at playing by himself, by inventing voices for his toys. "My imagination was my friend, my companion," he'd say. Up until this point, Robin had spent much of his life in strict all-boy grammar schools, much like the ones seen in Dead Poets Society. Now he had found himself in a relaxed mixed school with an unexpected amount of freedom. Robin recounted about his times as a senior student and his involvement in a school parody. "I did an impression of a teacher who was pretty out there. His name was Mr. Lavazzo. It was the first time I really had a performance." After completing school, Robin went to Claremont's Men College to study political science. However, Robin noticed that there was an all-women's college nearby, and the only subject that was mixed between the two was an improvisational theatre class. He stopped attending his political science classes, so his dad brought him back home, where he studied acting at the College of Marin. In 1971, Robin performed in Edinburgh in an award-winning production of The Taming of the Shrew as a last-minute replacement. After this, Robert attended the prestigious Gilead School of Acting, where he said there was attention on a different level to all the facets of acting. When Robin returned from Gilead, he started doing improvisational comedy as a kind of response to not finding acting work. He said, "I started being able to do comedy based on suggestions, which was this idea of, wait a minute, you're creating it, and that was addicting. The feeling on the floor was incredible, the instant messing with the audience. It was like sex without the guilt." In 1979, Robin made his move into comedy clubs, literally, by relocating to San Francisco. One of Robin's first gigs was at the Laughingstock. On their opening night, all the microphones died, and Robin in his typical style went, "And I don't need a mic. I just started going around and fucking around and just going into the audience, and I was loud enough because I'd been trained to be loud that I could fucking survive." Bennett Tremor used to assist Robin in writing his stand-up routines. He later commented that he felt superfluous most of the time. He noted that although Robin had a lightning-fast mind, there was a real thoughtfulness and analytical process behind his routines. He used to introduce me as his best friend, and I hadn't known him that long. I think he needed a best friend. Robin was noticed by a casting scout doing stand-up on a street corner, which led to his first television role. After one show performing as Mork the Alien in Happy Days, Robin suddenly found himself making $15,000 a week, starring in his own show, Mork and Mindy. Robin found himself living a real rock and roll lifestyle. He would go straight from filming Mork and Mindy to performing at the Comedy Store, and then going to improvisation and doing 5 or 6 sets a night, and then going clubbing, where he was often given drugs, and then do it all again the next day. By the second year of the show, Robin was regularly using cocaine. Although Robin always had his choice of the ladies. Sometimes at the end of a set, he'd pick a girl out from the audience and then just leave with her. His wife, Valerie Velarde, said, "He just loved women, and I got it, I understood, and I wanted him to have that, but I also wanted him to come home." The turning point for Robin was when he went in to film an episode of Mork and Mindy after spending a wild night out with comedian Josh Belushi. Paul Dauber said, who played Mindy, told Robin that John Belushi had died the previous night from a drug overdose of heroin and cocaine. Robin freaked out, repeating, "I was with him last night. I was with him." Robin had got clean from drugs, only to have Mork and Mindy cancelled. Robin felt his career was over. Although he had filmed Popeye earlier, he hadn't successfully made the jump to the big screen. He and his wife decided to move back to California. They settled down and had their first son, Zachary. At Zachary's dedication, people gathered round and each made a wish for the newborn's life. Robin wished for him to have humour and creativity. After Zachary's birth, Robin returned to stand-up. Arthur Grace was a photographer who travelled with Robin for a month for a magazine article. He observed with interest Robin's different stages in a night. He said, before the show, he would go into his private room and get ready. Robin would stand there, looking down, his arms hanging loose, completely quiet, completely silent. The first time I saw it, I thought he fell asleep. He was just quiet and still and zen-like. And then it was like somebody launched him out of a rocket. He had so much energy. He put so much energy into the show, so much of himself into the show. He came off stage and he was dripping, exhausted, mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausted. He left it all on the stage. After we checked into the hotel, he was full of energy. Again, he didn't want to go to sleep, so okay, it's midnight and we're in this after hours place, so out into the night we go. And then the next day, get up and go again. Finally, Robin opened at the Met in 1986, in front of his largest ever audience, over 38,000 people. His manager, David Steinborn, said, "We'd done, 20, 30 shows on the road for 6, maybe 8 months. We'd really worked on this." The show we taped that night at the Met, there was over 25% that I'd never heard before. There are guys who don't go on stage at a comedy store unless they have their 8 minutes written out. Robin did a 2-hour show. However, with all the time Robin was spending away from home, his wife and he had drifted apart. A year after they split, Robin began to date Zachary's nanny, Marsha Garces, who had now become his personal assistant. When previously he had separated himself from his family when he did work, now the woman that he loved was able to be at his side while he worked. Robin said she was really honest and really understood him, saying, "My life was saved by her." Good Morning Vietnam was the movie that established Robin as a successful movie actor, in a time when it was rare for actors to cross over from television to film. This opened the floodgates for movies and his movie career took off. After a string of successful film roles, Robin did a live theatre production called Waiting for Godot with Steve Martin. Robin said that Steve taught him about physical comedy and timing. Robin commented on the production, saying, "It really helps to do something so amazing that every night you can do it differently but yet the same." While on location in Skagway, Alaska, for a film called The Big White, Robin remembered feeling depressed, saying, "I was just thinking, what am I doing here? This is crazy," and feeling isolated, and all of a sudden went, "Well, there's one cure. I could drink." Robin quickly found himself drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels a day. It was, either fear or sometimes just the sheer wanting to run away from it all, sometimes wanting to run into it all. Just go, fuck it! I did 3 years of just insane shit, just getting worse and worse and worse. Robin finally got sober in 2008, when he started touring his one-man comedy show, Weapons of Self-Destruction. That same year, Marsha and he divorced. Robin started pouring his energy into his sold-out shows, but several months into his fast-paced tour, Robin began experiencing shortness of breath. The complication led him to cancel his remaining performances while he had heart surgery. After the surgery, he had a renewed outlook on life, taking things a little slower. During this time, he met and married his third wife, Suzanne Schneider. Robin's friends began to notice that he seemed flatter, a wax figure of his former self, losing weight and lacking his trademark energy. Robin was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a disorder of the nervous system that progressively affects movement and speech. Billy Crystal, a close personal friend of Robin's, said that he had never heard Robin afraid, except for the moment when he told Billy whilst crying that he had Parkinson's. Earlier in his career, Robin was asked what his greatest fear was. He replied, "I guess it would be the fear that I felt I was not just becoming dull, but a rock, that I still couldn't spark. Then I'd start to worry." Finally, the pain of dealing with Parkinson's, depression and anxiety became too much for the 63-year-old, with Robin hanging himself on the 11th of August 2014. The coroner's report revealed that Robin was sober, and that he had Lewy body dementia, often found in people diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.